Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought I would do a video talking about some vehicles that I would personally like to see their BR changed, whether it's going up or whether it's going down. And that's just because of the simple fact that I think it's good to give a little bit of discussion to the BR changes and try and put my own thoughts forward. If you do have any thoughts about BR changes or what you'd like to see, it would be nice to see it in the comments. It's something that I would like to actually read about. Another thing as well is I don't have footage for all of these vehicles, so I'll make sure to post a screenshot at the start of each of the chats about them, so therefore you can see what I'm talking about. So I apologize for that, but unfortunately some of my files got corrupted recently, so kind of annoying. Anyway, let's get into it. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and also like the video. The first vehicle to talk about is the M41D. Now, the M41D is one of those vehicles that has always been brought up by me when it comes to these BR changes, because I still don't understand why it's at the BR that it's at, especially with stuff like the Magach going down in BR, which it doesn't really deserve. The M41D is a slow bulldog. It has no additional armor on it, really, that makes any difference, and it faces a lot better rounds than the other bulldogs. The major thing that this vehicle gets is it gets some nice thermals on the gunner, but that's about it. The APFSDS is not very good. You go up against a lot of targets where the post-pen damage on the 76mm gun is just not enough, and also the Heat FS, which is stock, gets a little bit more pen than the Heat FS, at least when it comes to the flat penetration, but still it struggles to do damage post-pen. This is an issue with a lot of these 70 to 80mm guns. I realized on the standard Roycat that I was having the same issue, that the post-pen damage is just not good enough for the vehicle. And this thing has a 7.6 reload on its gun as well, making it a little bit worse. It does have some nice factors. The 50 cal is nice, and I suppose the gun depression is nice, but the gun is bad. The engine performance is worse than the standard Bulldog, and it's heavier, so it's way slower than the standard Bulldog, so you are basically relying on the thermals to carry you. The other thing as well at 8.0 is this thing does not have a stabilizer. So if you compare this to pretty much any other 8.0, when it comes to light vehicles, the only ones which don't have stabilizers is stuff like, I believe, the Warrior, but the Warrior also has much better mobility. It has, of course, the Milan missile, it has Gen 2 thermals, and it has all of the niceties from that setup. The M41D is massively outdone by a lot of other vehicles that are sat around here, and I have no idea why this thing sticks at 8.0. I was going to stick in the Chinese F-104A here, but it seems like they did add it to the list post my video yesterday, so it already solved. The WMA301 is also a very much hot button topic when it comes to the Chinese. This vehicle is pretty good at everything, and the higher BR it goes, the more survivable it gets. And I know that sounds really stupid, but think about this. The fact is, at this BR, a lot of vehicles get away with the simple fact that they have a lot of space inside them, which kind of doesn't really do much, apart from mean that rounds can just pass through them. The WMA301, at least 50% of it, doesn't have what would be classed as critical components to be able to kill the machine. So it has a huge engine block that people shoot and the rounds get stuck in. It also has a massive area under the turret where there's nothing there apart from fuel tanks, so maybe you'll set it on fire, but that's it. And in the back of the machine as well, if you're not taking a ton of ammunition, then you can just pass through there too. So the fact that you have an APF SDS, which doesn't spoil too much on the WMA301, and remember, APF SDS is the main round used by many vehicles around these BRs, it basically means that this thing is super survivable, even though it doesn't have a lot of armor. The other thing is, it does have a stabilizer, unlike the M41D, which doesn't, and it also means it has this 105mm, which has the standard reload for 105mm around this BR. It doesn't have great gun depression, but it does have scouting, and it does have really good thermals as well, on top of a very good APF SDS for the BR. The Type 83 APDS And then also it has, of course, the scout stuff. It has a laser rangefinder. It has even a HEVT shell, if you want to have a bit of fun. Also has smokes to keep you alive. This thing has everything you would want in a light tank. And since they've just added the premium pack for China with a bunch of A3 vehicles, I'm pretty sure this thing is just going to go through the roof once again. It's already been up BR'd once. It still is good enough to get up BR'd again. There are many vehicles which are at 8.7, which are a lot a lot worse than it in terms of their general capabilities. So I feel like this thing is going to go up again. The only question is, what do you do with the PTLO2? Because that is a pretty similar vehicle, but slightly worse than this one. Another one that's not moving is the Magach 2, which seems a little bit odd. They're moving down all of the other M48s that are at 7.3, apart from the Magach 2. The Magach 2, compared to the Magach 1, has, it's a little bit heavier, and also has slightly more horsepower in the form of 15 horsepower. That's really the only difference between it. The armor model is slightly different, but it doesn't make a difference for the vehicle itself, and it still has that horrific stock APCR. So this thing should go down if all of the other ones are going down, because it's a very similar vehicle in characteristics and basic playstyle. If you are fine with all the others going down, then this one should also go down with them, also to bolster a lineup for Israel, which it desperately needs. Then we have the early Russian destroyers. So you've got the Bespechajny and also the Riany. These are both Project 7 destroyers, and they basically have the same armament, the same armor, and the same survivability down to the amount of crew that they have compared to the 4.3 vehicles, such as the Project 7U in the Soviet tech tree. I don't understand why these things are 3.7. I would like somebody to explain it to me why these things are 3.7, because when I compare them to the Latucci, which is 4.0, they are so much better than it in every single way. The Moskva, the only thing the Moskva has over the Bespechajny is the fact it has one extra 130mm, but if you have a look at the Subachielny, the only thing that it has over the Bespechajny is nothing. It basically has a little bit higher armament when it comes to its secondaries if you want to deal with boats, but that's pretty much it when it comes to the vehicle. It's super weird that these things are 3.7. I'll never understand why these things are 3.7. Then maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's like an armor component that I'm missing on the vehicle, which is super key and means that it should go up 2 BR brackets for some reason. Maybe there's a gun which has a slightly better arc on it because of a certain turret configuration. But it just seems so weird to me that these vehicles are so different when it comes to their setup, when they have the same survivability and they also have the same firepower. It's very odd. They also have the same speed as well. It's just weird. The Chieftain Mk.10 is another vehicle I've mentioned before, and still don't understand why it is still 9.0. The vehicle itself has so many bad factors compared to a bunch of other vehicles at this BR, and if you just compare it to the standard MBTs you see, like the Leopard 1A5 at 9.0, it is worse in every aspect, apart from one which makes absolutely no difference to it because of the other aspects. The Chieftain Mk.10 has a 120mm. The gun itself is very good when it penetrates. You have the L23, which is an okay APF SDS. It works completely fine at the BR. So that factor is nice on it. It also has a longer reload than most vehicles that it faces, making it bad. Then it has the issue with its armor and its mobility. Its mobility is a lot worse than other vehicles that are sat at this BR. There's a lot of other stuff which is way more mobile. If I compare it to other stuff which is at a similar area, the MBT or the XM803, stuff such as the OF40 or even the Leopard 1A5, it loses out in pretty much every sense. The major thing that the Chieftain Mk.10 is marketed on is, of course, the Stillbrew armor in the turret. The problem with this is now that they gave basically everything at 8.7 or 9.0, or let's call it the main competitors of this thing, DM33, they just pen straight through the turret. So the armor makes absolutely no difference for the vehicle itself. Its turret rotation speed is quite nice, its gun depression is quite nice, but nothing better than the competition, and its mobility is just worse. So this vehicle, its main selling factor being the fact that it can tank a shell, and then also the fact that its gun hits hard, well, that's all well and good until you get out reloaded. And also, if you are trading more than 1-for-1. The vehicle also doesn't have thermals, which is pretty much standard for a lot of other vehicles at this BR. So that's another unfortunate thing for it. It has a completely worthless HESH shell, and also at the same time, it has, of course, the stock APDS, which can get you into trouble, especially if you get up-tiered into 10.0. This thing should have been 8.7 a long time ago. I have no idea why it isn't. But even with the Khalid being added, they had to give it a better APFSDS or even a APFSDS to make it at least a little bit viable. Hopefully with that added, they'll start rethinking about the Chieftain Mk.10 and where it should be. The last one is the SU, the SU-11. This thing should be way higher BR. I think we all, or at least most of us, would agree with this. The vehicle is a menace. Even when I'm in stuff like 7.7s or 8.0s, I feel that fighting this thing is on an equal playing ground. I have to basically take it very seriously. Usually in jets, if I'm in, like, let's say an 8.7 and I'm facing a 7.7, there are a few liberties that I can take because of the engine power difference, because of the gun difference, and generally, playing around them. You see this when you compare like 9.7s to 8.7s too, and even 9.3s to 8.3s nowadays. But the SU-11 is one of those vehicles that matches really well up against 7.7s and 8.0s, meaning that when it goes against 6.0s or 6.3s, they literally cannot do anything to it. The only thing you can do is defensively fly, hope that the pilot is bad, and then they overshoot and you kill them. That's literally it. You can't do anything else with them. It is also super effective in ground realistic. It has access to the 2 bombs, which drop individually, meaning 2 kills with the 250s, and then after that, you can use the guns to penetrate targets top down or go after other planes. It is a very, very versatile aircraft in the combined armed forces modes. The vehicle itself is just really good. I don't know how else to put it. It should be changed. It should be moved. After grinding out the SU-9, which is its standard tech tree one, that also is very good, but it is slightly worse than the SU-11. This thing should really go up in BR. As always, though, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Forge, Siegebreak, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, and also Sem Arslan, Wilkski, Uncle Bean, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.